Welcome, everybody, to the Good for Business show. I am your host, Michelle J. Raymond, and I am excited because this week I'm joined by the LinkedIn's cranky fuddy duddy that claims to know some stuff, if I've got that right. So, Petra Fisher, welcome to the show. I appreciate you making some time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good fun.
I know. And so we're going to be talking about personal branding tips this week. And I wanted to, pick your brain about some questions. But before we jump into that, for anyone that hasn't come across you, tell us in your own words, who are you? Who do you help? And yeah, what do you do with your clients?
Okay, well, I'm Petra Fisher. I am totally addicted to tea. I've never, nobody ever sees me without a cup of tea. Other than that, I'm also totally addicted to books and going to Nick Cave concerts. So I have three habits to support. And in order to do that, I help people become visible on LinkedIn and like so visible that other people start talking about them so that they get clients because I am scared shitless of doing cold calling, outreach, acquisition, and all that. So I had to find another way to get clients to sort of for people to discover me. And that seemed to work because I've been in business for 10 years now. And so that is what I teach other business owners as well. And thanks so much for having me on the show.
Look, and I'm yet to find anyone that does like cold calling. I come from, 2 decades. That sounds better than 20 plus years in sales roles. And I fell into LinkedIn for exactly the same reason because I didn't want to do cold calling either. No one wants to do cold calling. Like, there's got to be a better way. And I'm with you. I think LinkedIn is that way. So, we talk about the words personal branding a lot on LinkedIn. I'm not sure that people do outside of the platform. It just seems to be this word that goes around a lot. But what do you think the benefits are of people building a brand on LinkedIn, and how do they go about doing it?
All right. Well, I guess the benefit is that when you have a strong personal brand, that's how people remember you. That's how people refer to you. So, um, yeah, when we look at my case, a lot of people refer to my LinkedIn headline because of their cranky old fuddy duddy. And that is something that sticks. Um, and I guess in my case, so personal brand obviously is a lot more than your knowledge and your brand colors and your logo. So the things that you can really showcase on LinkedIn are more about your personality and your values and things like that. And once I realized that people always talked about me as being funny, it's like, oh, me? Okay. Um, I started realizing when they thought I was funny because I honestly wasn't aware of it at first. And then I was able to purposely use it and not in a forced way, but so I guess in my case, my personal brand, apart from knowing a lot about LinkedIn, is showing up really casually. Um, my daughter puts it, you and your silly jokes, I could never be a client. And drinking tea. But that is how people really remember you. And the comment by the daughter, like, I could never be a client because for your dumb jokes, that's actually really good because not everybody is your ideal client. And I think that is the strength of a strong personal brand because especially when we offer services, nobody needs us, we've all got Google. But when people reach that point where they don't want to figure it out themselves, when they want to get in 3 months where you and I got in 3 years, then they're ready to hire someone. And of course, they'll look at the sort of objective. Look, has that person got a bit of a background in what they're offering? Is there any proof they can actually do this? But they'll still find 13 in a dozen. So then ultimately the decision is based on gut feeling. Like, is that person going to get me? Am I going to have fun with that person? And I think that is where your personal brand really comes into it. It makes you relatable to some people and it makes other people run a mile so that you only end up with your really, really dream clients. And you asked, how can we do that on LinkedIn? Well, with everything, with your profile, with your post, with your comments, once you're aware of the kind of clients you want to attract and how you're most comfortable, and then showing up like that the whole time, that's where the magic starts to happen.
Yeah, and I talk to people about, creating your digital twin, because I think often they jump onto LinkedIn and think, I've got to create a personal brand. I've got to be a LinkedIn version of myself. It's a professional platform. And they get themselves in a knot, because they're trying to be a LinkedIn version of themselves. And so what I say is, really what you've done with your brand and I try to do with mine is just be ourselves, because that's what makes us unique. It's the only thing that makes us unique. It's our very own fingerprint, that no one else in the world is you. So rather than trying to, okay, Petra's funny, I'll try and be funny. It works for her. It may not work for someone else who's extremely technical. So I don't want people to kind of go, okay, well, I should try and be more funny on the platform. No, that's what works for Petra. And so,
Yeah.
I just want to, say to people, you got to find your thing, whether you stumble into it or whether it's deliberate or it evolves over time. It's got to be yours, right?
Absolutely, because I had this conversation with a client of mine at one stage, and then suddenly she said, I get it. She says, I have been so informal in the little videos that I do, and that's not me. I was looking at what appeals to me and other people. And she said, but it's not the being casual that appeals to me, it's the being real. And from then on, she's wearing jackets and formal dresses again because that's who she is. And yeah, I usually say to people, if you're at work with a client, or if you have your first meeting or call with a prospective client, what kind of clothes do you wear? Because that is your profile picture or any pictures you share on LinkedIn. How do you speak? Are you really chatty, or are you more to the point? Are you a bit more formal, or a bit more jokey? All these kind of things. Just think how you show up when you work with clients, and that's how you want to show up on LinkedIn. Because there's a lot of talk about being authentic and being yourself and showing your personality. That doesn't mean you have to show the whole you and all your personal stuff, because we're still deciding how much of ourselves we show, and you still can decide not to show things, but what you do show, I think, should be as real as it gets.
And I liked what you said before, it's consistency as well. So across your profile, across your comments, across everything that you do should actually all be in alignment. And I find that the more that you do that, it's not just a one-hit wonder. It's not just, here we go, I'm going to show up and try this today. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to try this. Oh no, I'm going to try that. People are confused by that, and that breaks trust. And everything that we're trying to do here is to build trust, in people. So and again, you got to find what resonates with you, what makes you comfortable. That's why you'll see me on every single time I'm on a live. I have this black polo on. I have two different versions because I have my new logo on my new ones. But why do I do that? I spent the last 15, 20 years in my corporate roles wearing beautiful shirts and nice dress pants and polished shoes. And if you see me outside on the weekend, I wear polos all the time. I've got one in the whole rainbow. Like literally, it depends what mood I'm in. I pick that. But I decided for my business, part of what I wanted to do as well was just be more me. And, I don't mind getting dressed up from time to time, but realistically, Michelle in a polo, if you see me outside at the pub, that's what I'll be wearing. And, and for me, that's what I'm most comfortable in. And it's easy for me to just be me, and so, and that's what makes life easier on the platform, instead of, like I said, people getting themselves into a knot trying to be something that they're not. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, individuality, being yourself, where are the kinds of ways that we can express this? Like, what kind of places can we use it on LinkedIn?
Yeah. So I am sure that there's even a place for it on your LinkedIn company page. But as you know, I know a little about that, so I'll leave that to you. But with your personal profile, again, it's pretty much everything, isn't it? It starts with the banner that you put across your profile picture. Because for the longest time, I had a profile picture still with a jacket, so you could see the collar. And in training, I used to say, and now I cringe when I think about it, but I used to say, look, I need people not to run away in these first 3 seconds, so they start reading my profile. And then anyone who's ever seen my profile, if you read the headline, they're going to run anyway. So that was a bit silly, So now I just wear a t-shirt in my profile picture because that's who I am. The headline, and anyone watching this, please don't follow my lead because it's the most not sensible thing I've done. Listen to all the LinkedIn trainers. You start your headline with what you do and whom for, because every time you comment, only that first bit is visible and that needs to attract. But you've got 220 characters, so you could add something further down that makes you really you. Like my headline's the other way around. I know it works for me. But really your individuality, what makes you different from the next person. And I say different, not better. I'm sure there's been clients that hired me, whilst there's lots of other LinkedIn trainers who have more knowledge. But I had enough knowledge and I am the right person for them. So yeah, anyway, in your profile, it's even your writing style. I'm a big believer in storytelling. So instead of having a list of responsibilities, more like by doing this and involving that, we achieve that kind of stuff. But a lot of people put plenty of thought in their posts, but not so much in their comments. Now, most of my clients at first, they totally stress out when commenting after talking to me because they start overthinking it all. Don't do that. But, you do want every comment that you make, you also want to strengthen your brand. You want people to remember you. And so whenever possible, it's good to have a word in there that sort of relates to what you do or what you stand for. Like last weekend when the Roe versus Wade was overturned, I consciously only commented on posts on that topic all weekend because I feel strongly about it. And if someone feels the other way, if someone thinks women don't have the right to decide over their own body, and if that's your total belief, that's totally fine. But, well, no, it's not. Then I'm not the person for you, right? And so that's another way of showing up. I think your values are important as well, because let's face it, if you're a business owner, you most likely went into business doing something you absolutely love doing. And then you might as well do it with the people that you love working with. Because otherwise, just go back being an employee and get all the benefits. So
yeah. And for me, like that's where good for business, business for good comes in. You will see me use the word good in lots of different places. I'm trying to put like my little bat signal out to the world that that's the kind of people that I'm looking to surround myself with. And, I'm really lucky that I have an amazing community of people that have come like yourself that just really lift me up. And I'm, super excited that, I've got the best job in the world as far as I'm concerned, being surrounded by the best of the best. And they also align with my values. So I had a bit of a different experience last week. I ended up just taking a week off the platform. It was all just a bit too much for me. I started off commenting and supporting, and then when it turned a bit crazy, I was like, I'm tapping out. I'll be back in a week. I had a really amazing week, with lots of great feedback on training and different things. But I think that comes down to, again, there were some people putting stuff out there that I think, you know what, that's permanent. Even if you delete it, someone's seen it, and that becomes part of your brand. Now,
yep.
If you stand for something and it really means something to you, I understand that. And I'm not trying to discourage that, but there are ways that I think we can express things not at the expense of others, with a bit of respect, because we're not all going to agree. Like that's the whole point of this planet. We will not all agree on stuff. And I know that that's one we could go down a rabbit hole on about all the different ways. But to your point, everything that we do on LinkedIn is a way for us to show our brands. And I'll tell you a story what happened to me only about 6 weeks ago on my headline. I rewrote my headline on my LinkedIn profile and I made it in that formula that you said, I do this and I help these kind of people. And I had some keywords in there. Couldn't have been further from me if I tried, but for whatever reason, I changed it. And, things went silent for me, like dead silent. And I was like, what have I done? I normally have a good stream of inquiries coming through, but there was nothing. And so I went back and I was like, it's that headline. It, like, if I read it, I'd be like, so what, Michelle? You're a podcast host or a live host. I don't care.
Yeah.
And so I changed it, and mine doesn't follow the formula either. So I say that I want to work with ambitious, innovative, and purpose-driven business owners. And I'm going to use my LinkedIn knowledge with their expert knowledge, and together we've got this superpower.
Yes.
And so it resonates with me, which then led to, I had to rewrite my about section. I don't know how many times I've done that. I've lost count. But now it feels like, glove in hand, the things fit together and it feels like me. And then when I'm on a sales call, I'm aligned with that person.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden it's like, it's so easy to sell when we're both on the same page. Like it's not hard, but even as a LinkedIn trainer, sometimes I try things and sometimes they don't work, but when it's me,
Absolutely.
it works, which is really interesting. So if we're doing things like this, I mean, personal brand is so broad, like you said, but when it comes to employees, like how can we help them to be an employee and represent the company, but still maintain their own personal brand?
Yeah, I love that one. Because there's sometimes people can make it difficult and tricky. Like employers can be worried about bringing us LinkedIn trainers in because they think if we tell their employees how to use LinkedIn, they're going to leave. No, we're going to make your company better. And sometimes it's the other way around. Employers want a certain company brand to all the employees' profiles, and you can offer suggestions like, hey, here's a bunch of banners. If there's one that you like, you're welcome to use it. Or here's a bit of wording. If it feels comfortable with you, you can put this in your about. But the LinkedIn profile is still a personal thing, and your employer has nothing to say over it as long as you're not, breaching things like legally and whatnot. But I think it works the same as for us individual business owners. If that employee is happy in their job, and if they're not, it's a lost cause anyway for that company, So if they're happy in their job, if they support the mission of that company, if they love what they're doing, that is their personal brand. And that rubs off on the company because it shows that the company has employees who absolutely love what they're doing, who are amazing what they're doing. And if an employee is happy in a company, then usually they'll be behind the company's vision and mission and all that. So then you can show them how some of those keywords or phrases that align with who they are, how they can use that. I worked with a company once, I think there's about a dozen people in there, like a research company. And we ended up creating a number of banners with images that are used on their website, but really different ones. One had people in lab coats for the researchers, but because they're using with natural ingredients, we also had something with the fruit and veg for the people who are more colorful. And then we did put a little bit of writing on it, and we didn't tell people they had to use them, but a lot of people liked them. And then some really liked the company branding, would say, oh, I'd love that kind of image or that. And that way, getting people on board, I think that is how for a company. And it's also in the posting, right? Because as an employee, if you talk about what you're passionate about related to your work, then when people, start to notice you, they start to notice a company you work for. And I think that is where, employee advocacy or whatever we call it these days really can make a big difference for a company. And it can even create a bit of team building within the company, because when you work together on your LinkedIn presence and you talk about what do you stand for and what do you stand for and what do we stand for as a company, that conversation can even bring the team together a bit, and we're all on the same page again and going for this common goal.
Yeah, because you can't force people, and this is what I have conversations with companies, and, they talk to me. We start off talking about company pages, and then I say, hang on, what's going on with the employees? And then we start to have this conversation. They're like, nobody will support my post. okay, they're under no obligation, unless it happens to be someone's specific role and they were hired to do it. But, and what's in it for them? Like, did you actually give them training to learn how to do it?
Yeah.
Or did you just say, off you go? And did you listen and say, have a conversation and say, okay, it's all well and good. You love LinkedIn. I love creating content on LinkedIn, but we're in the minority, that 1% roughly of people that like to create content. So, how do you get the most out of it? And I love that idea for the different banners. That's something that I also do with my clients, because it gives a little bit of that individual personality coming out that
Yeah.
we're talking about. But at the same time, we made it easy for them. So it's just a small win. And I think I was listening to a YouTube video yesterday with Chris Do, and, his guest said something like, it's just pure physics. When it comes down to a mass, the bigger it is, the more force you need to move it. So start off small. Little
Yeah.
wins for branding all add up over time. And so
Absolutely. Yeah, I
it
think when
just
you work with a
resonated.
company, I always try, well, obviously you got to get the marketing department involved, because otherwise they feel like this
Mm.
external person is trying to overrule them. But I always ask them to find 3 or 4 people that are really keen on starting to use LinkedIn and work with them first. And then I usually try and organize like a big meeting with everybody, so that, you do a bit of your presentation to explain things, but then you can use examples from their own company, because you've got these people already involved. And then, with these people already involved, I ask everybody to come up with 2 or 3 people that they'll nudge a bit, that, when they're having a conversation at the water cooler, say, this could actually be a LinkedIn post if you do it a bit like this, because so many times people take their own work for granted and they don't realize how they can use it to showcase. But another thing, when you just said, how with the banners or whatnot, we can help create some things to make it easy, to give them options. Excuse me. I once, years ago, someone approached me for work. So then I went to their company page and clicked on employees to check out a few of the profiles. At least 7 of them had the exact same about section and the exact same headline. And that, as a possible
Robots.
client or partner, is such a turnoff, because where is the person? And it also feels as if that company is dictating it, and it's like, you're not doing yourself a favor as a company owner or management to have that kind of uniform presentation. Whereas with the banners that we did in this one company, where every banner had sort of like the company's logo on it, but each had a different image that really related to that person and their role in the company, that makes, you still have some uniformity, but by the same token, everybody's an individual. And I guess that's what you hired them for, right?
Unless we've got cloning going on in other parts of the world, I'm not familiar if it's here in Australia yet. But to the best of my knowledge, we're all individuals and doing things differently. And you're right, we need those different skills to make businesses go round. Like, I would make the worst person in a lab by myself, paying attention to detail and testing and doing. I have tried, for the record, and it was not for me. So, and vice versa, coming from working with people that were lab-based roles, imagine them wanting to come on LinkedIn Live and host them. They would be like, no, get me out of here. So,
Yeah.
so we've got to respect the differences. We've got to embrace the differences. And, like you said, quite often it's having that conversation so that people understand, yes, there's something in it for personal branding as an employee for the company, but I think there's some steps that we can show people. Actually, it's not just the company that benefits, it's
Yes.
you, your career, and where you're headed. And I think companies don't do a good enough job at getting to the understanding of why a person might want to do it. And not everyone wants to change jobs. Not everybody wants to
Yeah.
career, but it might be, I want a pay rise. Like, how can I get a pay rise? Because I've got kids that I've got to do something with, or, whatever it happens to be for. So, from that perspective, I think there's lots of reasons. And if you're a CEO and listening into this and you don't have your ducks in a row on your personal branding on LinkedIn, do not expect your employees to do it. Like, just do not. You lead from the top. And in my experience, Petra, if the CEO and the C-suite's not on board, it falls over. How about you, like in your experience?
Yeah, I think you need both because, like you say, you need the top to be on board. But when you're asking your employees to put effort in their profile or start posting, they need a motivation to do so as well. I was once hired by a company and they had real trouble filling certain roles. So they wanted the team to all start posting so that people realized that it's actually quite an exciting place to work. And I'm like, yeah, but why would they do that? Because you're saying you're understaffed and now you're asking them to do more work.
Yeah.
I could see it from the company perspective, but what's in it for the employees? And they're like, yeah, but then if we can fill those vacancies, they're no longer overworked. Yeah, but how are they going to do it in the meantime? We really need to have this conversation. And they couldn't come up with something that would really motivate. So in the end, I only got 2 people active who absolutely loved their jobs and who would take pictures on construction sites and write great posts. But for the rest of them, it's like, and it didn't have to be that way. When I talked to people individually, it was easy to find something they absolutely loved about their job. And I could show them how they could turn that into a LinkedIn post without it taking hours. But like you said, you need the top on board to sort of lead by example. And by the same time, you don't want it all to go top down. You also want it to go sort of bottom up. And that is sometimes a bit tricky to figure out. But I guess that's what they've got us for.
I know it's always funny when people say, yes, I'm going to do a presentation and then we'll have employee advocacy because building your personal brand on LinkedIn, it's going to be that easy. I think it's the hardest thing to actually get enacted in a business, a successful employee advocacy program that works for the employee and for the business and is sustainable over the long term. After that initial buzz and energy is worn off, and after everyone's paying attention to the stats, and after all of that wears off, probably around 3 months in my personal experience, then what is the motivator that keeps people going? And so it's really interesting. I've read a lot of posts recently because I follow the hashtag employee advocacy, and I love the excitement and the enthusiasm for people doing posts going, we're going to do this. And I'll go, one presentation. You think that this is just going to happen? Because branding, how long do you think it takes? I mean, I didn't, give you the heads up on this, but how long do you think it takes to build a personal brand on LinkedIn? So say I jump on the platform today, what do you think a timeline looks like if I'm active, right? So reasonably active. How long?
I think if you're reasonably active, like maybe post twice a week and comment 3 or 4 times a week, I think it can go as quickly as 3 months. I definitely believe that. And, sometimes, how to say fake it till you make it. And I'm not really into being fake. But when I first started my business and it was a side hustle and I still had a job and I hadn't had any clients yet, I would do posts like someone asked me yesterday and then explain something. And it was a truth, except it may have been my brother who asked me or someone else, but it was someone, right? And so I really established a name for myself before I even had my very first client. And that helps. But seriously, I think LinkedIn is such a forgiving platform because everybody's always whacking you around the head with consistency. And sure, if you go off the platform for like you did a week or, I used to go completely offline in summer holidays and I'd not be anywhere for 4 weeks. And sure, your visibility, everything plummets a bit, but it's so easy to pick it up again. So I think, honestly, that at first you can achieve a lot in just 3 months. And once you've got that, it doesn't matter, if you've just bought a new book and you get so caught up and you forget to work for a week. Once you've got that initial visibility happening, it is so easy to pick it up again. And guess that is one of the things I also really, really love about LinkedIn, that it's really about people. I don't know that much about Instagram, but I get the feeling that Instagram is way more about the right hashtags. Whereas because LinkedIn is about people, once you show up again, the people who like you, they're like, yay, and they comment, and then it all happens again.
Yeah, and we've got a few other LinkedIn trainers and people, personal branding specialists that have joined us. So shout out to you guys. But I'd love to know in the comments, how long do you think it takes? I'm probably with you, Petra. I think it's that 3 to 6 month. I don't think it's as long. For company pages, it's longer. We're probably talking more like 9 to 12 months before you can kind of see some momentum from that perspective. But my secret is use one to build the other, and it happens faster. So I use the company page and brand to build up the employees, and use the
Yeah.
employees to build up the company. So that's what I call synergy, and make them help each other. If you want to fast track it, that's my answer on how we do that. Now, I've saved the hardest question to last, and this was the one that you were like, do not ask me this. It's as simple as this one, Petra. What's your favorite LinkedIn feature and why?
Yeah, I guess this question might get a different answer every day because it's just how I feel. But I guess one thing that I really, really love is your profile video. You know, the one when you visit your profile, visit someone's profile, you whack them on the head, and yay, video starts playing. Because, yeah, you go. Because that is where people get to hear your voice, where they see your expressions, where they really, it's such a quick way to build rapport, or not, but that's the whole point of what you want to do on LinkedIn the whole time. So that is definitely one of my favorites. But there was one I wanted to ask you about real quickly, because now that we have instead of share, have the repost, where a post and all its comments and things, when because you're all about company pages. So when a company has some employees, do you feel that the company should use that repost to post it? Can you explain a little bit about how to best use that? Sorry to hijack your call.
No, it's all good. It's no problems. For me personally, and someone asked me about this today, about how or why, in particular, I chose to hit repost on their post instead of reshare, or writing my own post on the topic. And it was one of those things that, for me, it's like I want to be somebody's cheerleader. They've written something that I think is amazing, that I want my audience to see, and there's nothing that I'm going to add value to by actually sharing it over retyping it or doing anything. We know shares don't go anywhere on LinkedIn. So for me personally, I wanted them to know I thought that post was so good. I wanted my network to see it. And I didn't want any recognition. I didn't want to take away from what they'd written. I wanted it all to go back to them. And I don't care that there's zero in it for me as such when we measure it on just impressions or the usual engagement. For me, it was more that person, they noticed in a heartbeat that I'd pressed that button and went, why did you do that? And I said, I wanted to support you. And they were like, but you don't get anything. I said, I didn't want anything. I wanted my network to get the same value out of your post that I did. Now, as far as how does that work with companies, I think it's a great place to start, because sharing doesn't work. It really just isn't effective as yet. Whether that changes in the future, I've got my fingers crossed that it does. I think anytime you can get an employee to support a company post in any way, shape, or form, I don't care if it's a like, a comment, a share, a repost, go for it, because they're active and you can incrementally build them up to do other actions. I would rather someone hit that repost button on a company post and not worry about what happens with numbers. I would rather them press that and be active than hiding in the background, and not being a part of it. So as there is within the company page, if you have more than 10 employees, the opportunity to use the My Company tab, where you can get your team to write the posts, and then individual employees can basically press share, but it just creates it like a standard post that they've written for themselves. And so that's brilliant. Repost is a little bit different, but I still think anytime you can get the team supporting, working together. I'm certainly not going to say no to any of that. So I hope that
So
answered
how about
your
from
question.
the company page, reposting posts from employees so that the feed of the company page becomes, I think, a lot more lively?
Yeah, look, both ways. I'm always talking that synergy. How do you use the page to build up the employee? How do you use the employee content to build up the page? And the more times you do that,
Yeah.
the better off it is for everyone. Because again, it's that recognition. It's somebody noticed what I did. And that
Yeah.
often means more than anything, because
Yes.
acknowledgement is your secret weapon to employee advocacy. Too often we
Absolutely.
expect people to do stuff and then we just sit back and go, yep, it's their job. Like, come on, guys, we can do better than that. So
Yeah.
for me, a little bit of thanks, a little bit of acknowledgement is probably a secret weapon when it comes to helping others build their personal brand as employees, which impacts the company, and it becomes hopefully a more successful company that hires more people. Like, that's what I'm in it for.
I
So
know
yeah.
that's why you're the good trading company, Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have gone slightly over time, which is completely fine because I did not want to stop this conversation because I think we've offered, a lot of food for thought for people. I wanted to say thank you, Petra, for your advice. You do know a little bit of shit about LinkedIn, so
Little bit.
I appreciate you sharing it with the audience today. So, and for everyone that joined us, I appreciate you. We will be back next week to talk about how you can generate more leads on LinkedIn, because who doesn't want more leads? But not in the crazy automated, let's try and pay someone else to do it kind of way. So look forward to having everyone next week. Cheers.